All right, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Thanks for tuning in today. This is an educational channel, and we check out great theories, discoveries, and concepts that you could benefit from learning about, but you probably don't know anything about them because they've been suppressed and they are difficult to dig up. The powers that be don't want you to know about these things. And this is a segment that is called Your Blind Side. This is for all the patriots out there, the diggers, the truthers. Um, you're doing a fine job digging up the stuff and keeping the people on a steady course. But at the same time, I think you're neglecting a lot of things. And these are things that, you know, maybe in this phase of the info war, uh, they might not be needed, but in the long run, they are going to be needed. Um, and that's why I really haven't come out there until fairly recently because, you know, I want you guys to defeat the other side. And then when that has been accomplished, which I think it has been at this point, or it's about to be, then we still need to move forward. We're talking about moving into a golden age, and I don't think we quite know what we're in for or where we're going because the digging has not been deep enough. Yeah, we all got red pilled, and yeah, we all kind of had um, our worlds overturned. The things that we believed in, we found out that we couldn't believe in them, and that a lot of the things that uh, happen in terms of our social lives and our careers kind of collapsed right in front of us in the last 10 or 20 years or whatever. But the conspiracies run deeper, and the red pilling needs to run deeper. Uh, we're we're being naive if we think that we're going to just roll into the golden age um, with all our beliefs intact, or just only the surface level of our beliefs have been questioned. I hear a lot of the truthers out there. They say, "Oh, well, everything that I believed in, I found out it was false." But when they say that, they generally, um, when they say everything, they don't really mean everything. They just mean, you know, um, the most recent things that I learned as an adult, or things I learned in growing up in school. Um, but they don't dig down into, you know, kind of what I learned by osmosis when I was growing up in the home as a very little child, or what I just kind of absorbed uh, at like the culture, um, every aspect of what was surrounding me as a child that I values that I kind of picked up without even knowing that I picked them up. And then just even going deeper, our deepest belief systems in terms of religion and cosmology. Um, your belief systems are all wrong as far as all that is concerned. And I know that, especially in terms of Christianity, this has been the rock that you have, kind of uh, uh, braced yourself when all of the other things fell apart on you. All of this other stuff, your what you learned when you were in college and what you learned in high school and what you aspired to and um, your heroes and the people you looked up to when you found out that they were um, you know uh, pedophiles, or when you found out that um, they were compromised. um, you used your Christianity as a rock to, hold you up. But unfortunately, it turns out that, Christianity is going to collapse just in the same way. And it really already has collapsed, but you just don't know it yet. The weight of the evidence is overwhelming that Christianity is a psychological operation that was originally written by the Romans. It was written by the Caesars of the Flavian dynasty in the late first century as a psychological operation against the Jews. And they were trying to really put an end to Judaism, um, or at least put an end to like this kind of zealous Judaism. Because at the very same time that the Romans ran the psyop against the zealous Jews, the ones that were revolting and the ones that were um, uprising and the ones that were very high maintenance and difficult to deal with. These are the ones that the Jesus myth was targeted to because, they were waiting for a Jewish Messiah who was going to help them overthrow the Romans. And indeed, there were a number of self-professed messiahs, Jewish messiahs who did rise up and revolt in Jerusalem in 66 AD, kicking out the puppet ruler of Rome named Herod Agrippa II. And that revolt eventually caused the Romans to send in the army under General Vespasian, and it led to the 7-year-long war that's documented in Josephus's 7-volume work called War of the Jews. And so these rebellious Jews were the object of the Christianity psyop. So the Romans instead proposed a Messiah who was a Prince of Peace and believed in turning the other cheek, rendering unto Caesar and walking the extra mile, and so on. And at the same time, um, you know, uh, be at the same time as being deferential to the Romans, being very critical of the Jews, um, overturning the tables of the Jewish money changers, and um, yelling at the um, Jewish merchants selling small animals at the temple for the sacrifice. So this is a tailor-made Jesus for the Romans, and Paul is even more tailor-made for the Romans. And if you look and read Josephus, you can see that Josephus's 7-volume history there is really the model that was used by the gospel writers who were probably Josephus and his whoever Josephus was. Uh, I think that Josephus was probably a team of Roman intellectuals, but we know that Josephus was writing from the court of Rome and that he was endorsed full-throatedly by uh, Emperor Titus, who was also one of the generals at the time of this war and eventually becomes a new emperor in 79 AD. Um, Now, incidentally, these Romans, Caesars, they were called the Flavian dynasty of Caesars. And Flavian means golden. So that should tell you something. That's the age that we're rolling into. We're rolling into the age of the Caesars. Unless we wake up and confront this. And I honestly believe that the boss and the 17th letter, for all you patriots out there, they are waiting for you to call BS on Christianity. They are waiting for you to say, no, this isn't right. This isn't where we're going. Uh, we've done the digging. We figured this out. This is a psychological operation, just like everything else is a psychological operation. This is no exception to the rule. This is no miraculous thing that, because there isn't any evidence for um, the legitimacy of Jesus Christ or Christianity. All of the evidence is Flavian. The only people that have ever vouched for the existence of Jesus outside of the Bible are Flavians or other Roman emperors. It was an operation that lasted for generations, several generations. It took at least 60 years to write all those books in the New Testament. And then they wrote the church fathers, they wrote the Apocrypha, they wrote some of the Old Testament. It's all and you just have to really, I mean, the proof of it is when you read Josephus, but the logic of it is obvious. It's obvious. The Romans had full control. They had the largest empire in the world ever, and they had full control of censorship, distribution, and publishing. Nobody was writing anything in the Roman Empire in the first century unless it was Roman, Flavian. So, this story about uh, some Jewish fishermen and other illiterates writing these stories um, in Greek at that time and then getting them distributed widely, that's that's not realistic. And it just isn't. And Mike King talks about how in the at least in the 20th and 21st century, there is no such thing as an organic uprising or some type of organic movement. These are 60,000 man army. These are psychological operations that make it seem like things are organic. And the same was true of Christianity. It really took them a good 200 years, maybe even 250 years to kind of turn it into a religion because it didn't really kick in. But it was many many years of them trying to um, you know uh, stir up some type of thing that looked like it was organic. But there was no organic movement, that, oh, everybody just was so taken with Jesus's message that they just spontaneously, you know, uh, were drawn to this new religion, even though they had to face all this persecution to do so. There was no such. First of all, there was no persecution, and second of all, it follows exactly like what Mike King is saying, but just applied um, to the first century as opposed to the 21st century. It doesn't happen that way. It's a myth. And it is a fairy tale. and it is exactly the same as Santa Claus. Somebody, some older kid down the block has got to tell you that this is fake, and you're going to be upset about it for a while, but eventually it's going to kick in your head, and you're going to be like, yeah, well, that story about this fat guy coming down the chimney with, a bunch of toys on in every household on Earth in one night, that actually doesn't make any sense. It's probably my parents, right? Um, that is exactly the same situation. And if you can tell me why it's not, if you can provide me with any evidence, believe me, I would uh, soak it up, because it's not. I would love to be a Christian, uh, but it's not true. So I can't be. If you can convince me that it's true by providing me with some evidence that isn't Flavian and that is not part of the Bible, then, that would be some evidence. Um, and that would be something to work with as a truther. But as a truther, I don't I don't operate on faith, and nobody should operate on faith when there's evidence involved for or against. Now, you can maybe use your faith when there's no evidence either way, and there's, um, no pathway for the truth, uh, you know, to, make a decision. But in this case, there's overwhelming evidence that um, it's not true, and that the Romans did it. And you just have to read Josephus in order to do so. But instead, I hear a lot of Christians citing Josephus as corroborating evidence for the existence of Jesus, when in actuality, if you actually read the book, again, targeted at Mike King, if you actually read the book, you would recognize that it is powerful evidence against the existence of Jesus, and that Josephus was a Flavian. He is known as Flavius Josephus. He was adopted, according to his autobiography at least, adopted by the Roman royal family, which I think is a tall story and probably not true, and probably, just a part of the overall psychological operation that um, to create this pen name named Josephus, when it was actually kind of a team of intellectuals, maybe led by the Piso family. Okay, like, share, subscribe, comment, and contribute. Thanks for tuning in today. Remember to watch your blind side.